A man was rushed to hospital after a stabbing downtown overnight. Police have made an arrest in the investigation and are now working to piece together what led to the violent incident. Good afternoon. We begin near Peter and Queen, where a man was critically injured in a stabbing early this morning.
Police have now arrested a 38-year-old man in connection with the attack. CTV's Allison Hurst is live at the scene this hour with more from a witness. Allison.
Natalie, we'll hear a little bit more from that witness in just a moment, but first I want to share with you we have an update on the victim from police. The victim, a man in his 40s, they say he is in critical but stable condition. The stabbing itself happened at about 3:45 this morning near Queen and Peter Street. Police sectioned off part of Peter Street and lined the sidewalk and part of the road with evidence markers that led from the intersection to the shelter that's on the corner with Richmond. The 40-year-old was rushed to hospital in life-threatening condition, but as we have heard from police, his condition is now listed as critical but stable. And we spoke with a witness, a man who was outside the shelter at the time, and he shared what he saw.
There was a robbery going on, and one guy was getting robbed, and me and my girlfriend and the other gentleman that got stabbed, we went after the guy, and the guy just all of a sudden turned around and just stabbed him. And basically he just turned around and did it. And we don't know. I couldn't tell exactly what the guy looked like or anything because it was dark, but it's a shame that it happened. And yes, it was.
Did he have a mask on or anything like that?
I'm not too sure. It was more or less. It was just we were just trying to stop one of the gentlemen from getting robbed.
Police say they have arrested a 38-year-old man in connection with this incident, and they tell us that they don't believe there was any connection between the victim and the suspect. Reporting live, I'm Allison Hurst. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Allison. Now to the escalating trade war with the United States, as U.S. President Donald Trump officially orders higher tariffs on many Canadian goods.
Several other countries now face high trade barriers as well, but the lack of an agreement with Canada is prompting concerns on both sides of the border. The U.S. president signed an executive order imposing the new levy a few hours before his midnight deadline for a deal. The tariff of 35% applies to all Canadian-made goods that are not compliant with the current Canada-U.S.-Mexico trade agreement. While Ottawa has strongly pushed back on these claims, Trump claimed tariffs were justified in part by Canada's, quote, failure to curb the flow of fentanyl and other illicit drugs. The White House said Canada was hit with even higher tariffs because it chose to retaliate to Trump's previous tariffs.
A recent RBC study found up to 94% of Canadian exports to the U.S. last year could fall under the existing free trade agreement, but it's not clear how that will play out in reality. Still, there's little doubt some key sectors and businesses in this country will be hit hard. Prime Minister Mark Carney said in recent days a deal was not imminent, and he would only sign one that was good for Canadian workers and businesses. He released a statement which reads in part, "While the Canadian government is disappointed by this action, we remain committed to CUSMA, which is the world's second largest free trade agreement by trading volume." He also noted, quote, "The United States has justified its most recent trade action on the basis of the cross-border flow of fentanyl, despite the fact that Canada accounts for only 1% of U.S. fentanyl imports and has been working intensively to further reduce these volumes." And Premier Doug Ford is urging Ottawa to retaliate. He said in a statement, "Canada shouldn't settle for anything less than the right deal. Now is not the time to roll over. We need to stand our ground. The increase in U.S. tariffs to 35% is concerning, especially with tariffs still in place on steel, aluminum, autos, forestry, and now copper. The federal government needs to hit back with a 50% tariff on U.S. steel and aluminum." And this is all taking place as a federal appeals court in the U.S. is hearing arguments over whether the president has the power to impose the tariffs in the first place. A lower court had said his justifications for doing so were not covered by current law. A group of small businesses and a coalition of states are asking the courts to invalidate the majority of Trump's tariffs, arguing he overstepped his authority when he invoked emergency powers to impose so-called reciprocal tariffs on several U.S. trading partners, including Canada.
And we will have more on the escalated tariffs later in the newscast, the political fallout and the expected impact on Canadians. CTV's Jeremy Sharon will join us live from Ottawa coming up. But first, here's a live look at the city this afternoon. Just a perfect summer day to kick off the month of August as we head into the long weekend. Lindsay Morrison is here with a look at the current conditions. Lindsay, we've got a great weekend ahead.
Yes, I have a very good job today, Natalie. I get to talk about great weather for the long weekend in the middle of the summer season, and I don't think it gets much better than that. This is Goldilocks weather. It's not too hot, it's not too cool. You may have found it a little cool early this morning, but we are at 23 degrees right now with winds coming out of the east. They're fairly light. And on the satellite and radar, there is not much to show you here. A little bit of cloud has bubbled up for Toronto and areas to the southwest of the city, but it's a fair weather day. Also worth mentioning that the haze, the wildfire smoke, that situation has improved for today. We are currently at a 2 on the air quality health index. Worth mentioning, though, that smoke could be back tomorrow. But let's talk about today. Forecast daytime high 25 degrees under mainly sunny skies. And again, conditions look great as we head into the long weekend. A little dry. We'll talk about how your 7-day forecast is looking coming up. For now, Nathan, I'll send it back over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. No serious injuries after a stolen SUV crashed into a pair of traffic poles on the westbound Lakeshore. The driver hit a pole at Remembrance Drive before slamming into another one at Stadium Road just before 2:30 in the morning. Police say a 27-year-old woman driving the car was arrested, and they're still looking for the passenger. Lakeshore remains closed from Bathurst to Fort York for the cleanup and investigation.
York Regional Police are investigating a crash in Vaughan that left a motorcyclist badly hurt. The motorcycle and car collided on Weston Road at Hawthorne Road shortly before 9 last night. Police say the motorcyclist was taken to hospital with a serious leg injury but is expected to survive. The occupants of the other vehicle were not injured. No word yet on what led to the crash or whether any charges will be laid.
A judge is set to deliver his sentence this afternoon in the case of a teen found guilty of manslaughter in a deadly swarming attack on a homeless man. The girl was 14 when she and 7 other teenagers attacked 59-year-old Kenneth Lee in a downtown Parquet in December 2022. All 8 girls were charged with second-degree murder, and 7 ended up pleading guilty to lesser charges. Prosecutors are seeking 16 months probation, with the first year under an intensive support and supervision program. Unionized workers at Canada Post are entering their final day to vote on the Crown Corporation's latest contract offer. Voting is set to wrap up at 5 p.m., with results expected to be shared shortly after. The offer includes wage hikes of about 13% over 4 years, but also adds part-time workers that Canada Post has said are necessary to stay afloat. The union has argued the roughly 55,000 workers to reject the proposal and warns further job action could risk the government intervening with back-to-work legislation or a binding arbitration offer.
A flight attendant who was a passenger aboard the Delta plane that flipped over at Pearson Airport in February accuses the airline of using an inexperienced pilot. The allegation is part of a $75 million lawsuit filed by Vanessa Miles in U.S. federal court. Miles says she was seriously hurt in the crash. 80 people were aboard the Toronto-bound jet from Minnesota that slammed onto the tarmac, eventually ending up on its roof.
The pilot was definitely going through training. It really was a pilot that had low time on this aircraft, not abnormal. Her lawsuit claims inexperience, that there's no definition of what inexperience really means from an airline pilot perspective. She was qualified, she passed the tests, she had a license to operate this aircraft, the specific aircraft. So as far as I'm concerned, she was qualified to operate the airplane.
The allegations have yet to be tested in court. The City of Toronto is marking Emancipation Month today, raising the Black Liberation flag at City Hall. Deputy Mayor Amber Morley is helping to raise the flag and proclaim August as Emancipation Month in Toronto. Here's a live look down at the square right now as this is underway. Amber Morley is joined by the Honorary Consul of Haiti, as well as members of Toronto's Black arts and culture community. It was on this day the Slavery Abolition Act came into effect, marking the beginning of emancipation for hundreds of thousands of African slaves and their descendants. Many journeyed north following the Underground Railroad to find freedom in Canada.
Returning now to our tariff coverage, U.S. President Donald Trump is following through on his threat to raise tariffs on Canada, with duties on some Canadian goods rising from 25% to 35%. CTV's Jeremy Sharon is following this story and joins us live with the latest. So, Jeremy, are we going to hear more from the PM today?
That's a big question, Nathan. Look, we've reached out to the Prime Minister's office. It's unclear at this point whether he will be available today or will, make further comments. We know that he put out that statement early this morning in reaction to the imposition of these 35% tariffs, which, of course, it's important to highlight that Canada is, as the Prime Minister indicated in that statement, better off than many countries due to the agreement that already exists, the Canada-US-Mexico agreement, because these new 35% tariffs are imposed on goods that are not covered under that CUSMA agreement. So that is, somewhat of a good point here. But certainly, the Prime Minister has made it clear through that statement that while his team will continue to focus on negotiations, and those negotiations won't be easy. We know that the President has been clear. He has some key issues when it comes to the trade relationship with Canada. Namely, he does not like the trade imbalance, he calls it, and has continued to tackle or criticize supply management in the dairy industry, and most recently says that Canada's position on the Palestinian statehood is going to be an issue when it comes to trade negotiations as well. So negotiators will have their hands full when it comes to still trying to get a deal done. But we know through that statement that the Prime Minister's position and his government will be focused while on those negotiations, also on what it can control, which is, bolstering Canada's domestic economy. We know that they've done the work to eliminate interprovincial trade barriers. They'll be trying to really boost the domestic economy and continuing work on diversifying trade partners. The Prime Minister has been meeting with other, world leaders to try to ensure Canada has more and more stronger trade partners across the country. That seems to be the path that they are looking at moving forward as negotiations continue.
All right, Trump, we know, is unpredictable, but he did tell NBC last night he was willing to talk to our PM. Might that happen?
Look, I think that's the hope for many Canadians. Most people watching this are hoping that the Prime Minister can have some kind of dialogue with the President. It is certainly a good sign that Donald Trump is indicating that, he's open to that. We heard from him yesterday, and I mean Donald Trump, that Prime Minister Carney had reached out. Last I heard from the Prime Minister's office was that they had no official comment when it came to whether or not a conversation had been had or efforts were underway to get a conversation with Donald Trump. But I think we can expect that at some point in the near future, the two leaders are going to speak. It's going to have to happen. And we'll certainly look to learn more details. But that would be kind of an important, step here. As I've touched on, the President has been clear he has some key sticking points. I think that, it would be beneficial and most Canadians would be, happy to see the two leaders speak as these negotiations continue. The biggest thing here, Nathan, is that the uncertainty continues. We don't know how long these negotiations are going to continue. This August 1st deadline, like many others, has once again kind of come and gone. We see these new tariffs. We still don't know how long before, a deal gets done.
All right, but you'd have to think that speaking to each other would help. CTV's Jeremy Sharon in Ottawa. Thank you.
You would think. Yeah, thanks.
With no deal in place and the U.S. president taking aim at Canada's economy, the Carney government's handling of the trade dispute is also under the microscope.
On the one hand, it could harm Carney, and then people could say, listen, we hired you to secure some kind of deal. Just as equally, though, we might see Canadians shrug their shoulders and say, well, if Carney can't talk sense to Trump, who could? If there's no deal to be negotiated between these two, maybe there's just no deal at all. I do think there's a healthy skepticism among Canadians that you can actually get any progress with Donald Trump. You hear often coffee shops, bars, bus stations, people just say, well, what's the virtue of a deal with Trump anyway? He doesn't keep his word. He can't be relied upon. So in that sense, it may give the Prime Minister some latitude where he doesn't pay the political price that he might otherwise.
For his part, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says his party is holding out hope for a deal to end U.S. tariffs, but he added, quote, we must stand our ground and put Canada first. And amid the tariff uncertainty, the Waterfront BIA says the tourism industry seems to be seeing an upturn. A midsummer snapshot survey of businesses along the waterfront found 52% are reporting more visitors this year and 25% are reporting an increase in U.S. visitors. Here to help us break down the numbers is the executive director of the Waterfront BIA, Tim Coker. Tim, thank you for joining us. Let's start with this bump in business. Fair to say this is positive news for your members, especially in the context of this economy.
Yeah, I think this was the week that we wanted to reach out at the middle of the summer, ask a bunch of the businesses, just drop in and say, how are you doing? Right? Is business up or down compared to last summer? And it was cautiously optimistic. I think there's been a lot of good things happening. Like there's been great weather, and the Waterfront Center has been really strong programmer with really consistent things going on all the time. And a lot of the Central Waterfront businesses reporting, like some of them are reporting they've had their best year ever. So, I mean, we're cautiously optimistic that that's going to keep continuing. The other thing I should mention, Natalie, is that it was great to see that Canadians and Ontarians were represented. A lot of people, like about 40%, were saying that they definitely have noticed a trend of more international and Canadian visitors. So we have to say thank you to the Canadians who said that they were going to shop locally and travel locally. It looks like they're actually coming through on that promise, and we appreciate it.
How much of this upswing do you think, Tim, is due to the trade tensions and the geopolitical climate with the U.S. right now?
Well, you never know. I mean, there's weather, and then there's geopolitical weather, and the weather has been great. So, I mean, that definitely helps. I mean, July was significantly up. I mean, ferry traffic was higher than it was last year, and the water taxis also were higher than they were last year. So we know that, like, people want to come down to the waterfront. We never know exactly how many of them are coming from where. But, yeah, I mean, it seems to at least be partly motivated by the situation.
And you mentioned the weather. Obviously, it's been beautifully sunny for a lot of this summer. I'm sure that helps. You look at factors like the Blue Jays doing well this season, exhibits down at the Harbourfront Centre. Do all of those things play a role?
Yeah, I mean, we had about half a dozen, maybe 10 businesses that actually specifically mentioned it's been noticed in the last few weeks that the Blue Jays are driving a lot more traffic. And that was also, I think, some of the mentions of seeing more U.S. visitors was we saw a lot of Yankees jerseys during the most recent trip, and even more than we'd usually see in other trips. And so, yeah, I mean, if Alejandro Kirk is hitting 300, it apparently impacts the businesses, too, in a good way.
Okay. Tim Coker, head of the Waterfront BIA, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Natalie.
All right. U.S. President Donald Trump has sent letters to the leaders of 17 major pharmaceutical companies outlining how they should slash U.S. prescription drug prices to match those paid overseas. Trump sent the letter to the chief executives of Eli Lilly, Merck, as well as Johnson & Johnson. Trump signed a sweeping executive order in May demanding drug makers cut U.S. medicine prices to match those abroad, saying if companies did not comply, the government could bring down prices or pursue other measures, such as importing cheaper medicines from overseas. Trump gave companies until September 29th to respond with binding commitments to those terms.
Cecile Dion, one of the surviving members of the world-famous Dion quintuplets, has passed away at the age of 91. The 5 girls were born near North Bay in May of 1934, and they were the only quintuplets at the time to survive more than a few days. They quickly became a global sensation, but the 5 sisters grew up unhappily in the public eye, saying later that their lives had been ruined by the exploitation they suffered. Cecile Dion was survived by her only sister, Annette.
Well, July is now in the rearview mirror, and yes, I think many of us are going to remember it for being a pretty good month. Lots of fun to be had in the sun, very hot temperatures as well. And interestingly enough, we did see more than our monthly average of rain. In fact, yesterday we picked up 4 millimeters. Look at that, our average daytime high was almost 30 degrees. A new month means new norms. August is traditionally slightly cooler by about a degree, and we expect to get about 78 millimeters of rain. Now, tomorrow, the big parade is happening for the Toronto Caribbean Carnival. Here's a look at your forecast. We're going to take you right through the full long-range forecast after this break here on CTV News at noon. Stay with us.
When you see it happen, send it to CTV News. Text 10400 from your screen to ours. Text 10400.
Well, it's Friday. We've got a long weekend to look forward to. The weather's cooperating, and there's lots going on in the city.
Absolutely. You couldn't ask for a better run of sun for all the long weekend events, not only this weekend, but right into next week.
It's been a pretty good summer overall. I mean, I think most of our weekends have been dry, have allowed for events, whether it's public events or events in maybe your own backyard to go off without a hitch. And it looks like, yes, this long weekend will be much the same, with perhaps some improvements. Not as hot, not as humid. It's going to be comfortably warm as we make our way, especially into tomorrow, with a little bit of heat building for Sunday and Monday. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm. Injury lawyers, you don't pay, unless they win. Now, something that we will be talking about over the next couple of days, in addition to the fact that, well, it's going to be dry, it's going to be sunny, we could see a little bit of wildfire haze return. Today's pretty good, though. The sky looks fairly clear, and we are currently at a 3 on the Air Quality Health Index. That's the case right around the Golden Horseshoe. Worth pointing out, though, that the numbers are a little bit higher in southwest Ontario and northwestern parts of the province. Here's what looks to happen as we make our way through the next couple of days. Yeah, more drifting smoke. So especially if you're spending your long weekend in parts of cottage country, eastern Ontario, you are likely to see a little more in the way of haze, maybe some smoke, maybe become impacted by it. So just be mindful of that. We have a clear weather forecast, but that's still something to be aware of. Satellite and radar right now, a little bit of cloud cover has bubbled up around the downtown, and closer you get toward London and Niagara Falls, north of here and east of here, we've got beautiful sunshine and expect to have that through the rest of the afternoon. High pressure is in place, and generally that means a lack of active weather. That's certainly the case as we progress through this first week of August. No measurable rain in sight. I'm just going to pause this here for Sunday around the dinner hour. It's looking at this point like there could be a pop-up shower. Not a guarantee. Don't adjust your plans around that quite yet. Monday looks dry. Tuesday as well. And guess what? Wednesday, much of the same. Temperature-wise, we are nice and comfortable this hour. 22 degrees in Toronto. It's 21 in Wyerton as well as Muskoka. 23 degrees in Trenton and 22 in the Windsor area. We're forecasting an afternoon high of 25, which is technically on the cool side of seasonal. 27 degrees is our average temperature this time of year. Your evening looks lovely if you want to get outside, maybe enjoy some outdoor sports or activities. We're not dealing with that oppressive heat and humidity like we had been for much of this month. And then overnight, slipping to about 15 degrees for a low. There was a noticeable change this morning, I think anyway, stepping outside. Look at that, Waterloo could drop to about 9 for a low. Many are getting out of the city and enjoying the long weekend in parts of Ontario's cottage country. Here's a look at what you can expect over the next 3 days in places like Wasaga Beach, Muskoka, and the Kawarthas. It's looking pretty good. It makes my job a little easier to be able to have a long weekend forecast like this. The Civic Holiday Monday, mix of sun and cloud. Temperature is going to climb back to about 30 degrees, but the difference is it's not going to feel like 40. So what you see is what you get, essentially. Might feel just a little bit warmer than that, and you may notice just how dry this 7-day forecast is. We could use some rain, not much to look forward to in this 7-day forecast anyway. Nathan, I'll send it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. The Toronto Caribbean Carnival returns this weekend, celebrating Caribbean culture. Now, today, Sankofa Square is being transformed into Carnival Village, promising to be a hub of activity. CTV Jessica Smith is live with more on the anticipation ahead of festivities, and it's great to have all the action right in the heart of the city.
You see it popping up everywhere, Nathan. The Toronto Caribbean Carnival is such a fabric of the city of Toronto, this year celebrating 58 years. And I'm joined by Jennifer Hurley, a familiar face with the Carnival. Jennifer, how excited are you for today? The village is being set up as we speak. The music is on. We're getting into the feeling. But what can people expect from the village today?
The village is a new addition this year. Music, dance, really, really good food, and a vibe that is really taking over Toronto. This amazing Toronto Caribbean Carnival, the really epicenter of diversity and culture in Toronto. Come out, have some fun, good food, good music, and dancing. What more can you ask for?
Nothing. I mean, we were already talking to people who've traveled in from the U.S., from around the world, who were excited for it. And they're like, well, what's going on today? And I said, it's the village. I know there's some performances happening. Can you tease anything, or is it a surprise?
It's going to be a surprise, but come down because we have some amazing performances. We have some special DJ, international DJs, really good people. You know, we always put on a good show, and today's going to be fabulous at Sankofa Square. And on the parade day, which you will be joining us as usual, it's going to be fantastic. We always have a good time. But we also have at Coronation Park, we're going to have another village set up. You know, some people don't like the busyness of the parade route, but you can come down with your family, have fun, safe, music, things for families to do. Really a different atmosphere where you have live music, really good food as usual, because, you know,
it's about the food.
We Caribbean people, we like to eat. And so please come down, have a fabulous weekend, and really take your time, bring water, make sure you take the TDC and the GO, because you don't want to be driving downtown with all the traffic.
Don't nobody want to be driving in all that traffic. Now, tonight, more exciting stuff with the Pan Alive. I know there's a bit of a different name or theme this year.
Keeping Pan alive, because panorama and steel pan is such an important fabric of the Caribbean culture. And you know, it is the most recent musical instrument that was developed in this 20th century. And it's just beautiful, fabulous events. Come down, because these pan players, they practice for months, and it is really a fabulous, fabulous event. So come down to Pan Alive. If you're not really wanting to do the Pan Alive, come down to St. Francis Square, but make sure you come down for the parade tomorrow, because it's going to be fabulous. And later on, as you know, we are going to announce the winners of the King and Queen competition from last night, and so we would love to do it with you as usual. But it's going to
perhaps an exclusive announcement.
It might be.
Jennifer, thank you so much. We'll have more later on today, because we're just beginning all the festivities. I'm going to send things back inside. We're going to get ready to go have some fun, dance our hearts out.
Always willing to dance.
Thanks.
Very good. Thank you, Jess. And Toronto police say they will be out in full force to ensure that Carnival weekend festivities can take place safely.
This is no credible threat to this event, but we're always diligent to make sure that we are aware of that potential. We plan for that. We will work with the organizers to make sure that the response is appropriate. But I want to emphasize, the hope that everybody will respect the great festival that this is, and allow it to happen peacefully and safely for those that are involved.
Police say they will focus on crowd and traffic management, but they'll also have an increased presence to respond to any incidents that could occur. You're watching CTV News at noon. Stay with us.
Returning now to news south of the border. U.S. President Donald Trump sent letters to the leaders of 17 major pharmaceutical companies outlining how they should slash U.S. prescription drug prices to match those paid overseas. CTV's Kamal Karamali joins us now with more. Kamal, why is the president going after these companies?
Nathan, you may have heard of some of these big pharma giants. We're talking about AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Novo Nordisk, just to name a few. And what Trump is asking of these companies, or should I say demanding of these companies, is that they raise prices for other overseas countries, European nations, perhaps even Canada, and use those extra profits to lower drug prices for Americans. So Trump says the drug industry must offer U.S. Medicaid patients the lowest comparable international price, and they have about 60 days to do this. What are the consequences for companies who don't follow suit? It's worth noting the letters to lower drug prices have no legal authority, but Trump has threatened to, quote, deploy every tool in our arsenal if companies don't follow through. And earlier this year, Trump also threatened pharmaceutical tariffs as high as 200% to try and get more drug manufacturing to take place in the United States. Right now, we know, according to latest data, that only about 12% of drugs are actually manufactured in the United States. Most of it is exported out to other countries. Have a listen to what the White House press secretary had to say yesterday regarding these demands of these big pharma giants.
Accordingly, I'm calling on Eli Lilly and Company and every manufacturer doing business in our great country to take the following actions within the next 60 days. Extend the most favored nation pricing to Medicaid, guarantee most favored nation pricing for newly launched drugs, return increased revenues abroad to American patients and taxpayers, provide for direct purchasing at most favored nation pricing.
All of this spooking investors this morning, Nathan. We know that healthcare stocks tumbled today. AstraZeneca and going down 3%. Novo Nordisk down 4% this morning.
And Kamal, what about Americans that buy pharmaceuticals from Canada? What effects could we feel here if Trump moves ahead with tariffs?
Yeah, you heard the plan. So what he wants is for these companies to increase drug prices in other countries and use that revenue to lower prices for Americans, and that includes in Canada. So what we could see as an unintended consequence that was supposed to target European nations is drug price increases in Canada, and that also might result result in Canadians going south of the border for drug purchases if it does become cheaper there. So we could really see a flip of seeing drugs become cheaper in America and more expensive in Canada. Back over to you, Nathan.
All right, CTV's Kamal Karamali in the CTV Newsroom. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Advancements in cancer treatments have come a long way over the years.
One example, a new machine at the Ottawa Hospital which combines live MRI images with very precise radiation therapy. CTV's Peter Sperling reports it's something doctors say was unheard of until recently.
It's the latest advancement to fight cancer.
I call this Star Trek.
This is a new MR-Linac machine targeting cancer with pinpoint accuracy.
One of the most important parts of radiation therapy for us is actually aiming at the right spot, right? So historically, we had a lot of trouble doing that because different parts of the body can change shape, they can move around, just even with breathing.
It combines imaging with radiation at the same time, even as the tumor moves during treatment.
So it makes the treatment much more precise, makes it much more concentrated. Certain people who would not have had treatment can have treatment now.
It's essentially two devices in one, an MRI used to take images inside the body and one that delivers radiation treatment.
So for the first time, we're able to combine precise imaging and precise delivery of radiation in one system.
And what that means is the oncology team can adjust on the go, see the shape and position of the tumor.
So we can use that information to adapt the radiotherapy plan. So a brand new way to deliver the radiotherapy is come up with every day while the patient's on the bed.
The Ottawa Hospital is one of a handful of treatment centers in Canada with this technology.
I hesitate to use big words like transformative, but I think we're going to learn things, the way patients are treated here, that is going to change the way patients are treated throughout the organization and eventually globally.
The $10 million machine has been in use since June. About a dozen prostate cancer patients have received treatment so far. The plan is to expand to treat other types of cancers and about 250 patients per year.
The doctors I've been speaking to envision more upper abdomen kind of treatments, pancreas, liver, those kinds of things, where the ability to track the motion of the tumor, which is something we know happens as patients breathe, that capability becomes very important.
Peter Sperling, CTV News.
Toronto Public Health is reporting the city's first human case of West Nile virus this year. The health department says it received lab confirmation of the virus in an adult resident. Last year, that didn't happen until mid-August. West Nile is transmitted to people through the bite of an infected mosquito. It can cause symptoms including fever, headache, and nausea. Toronto Public Health is advising that you take precautions to avoid mosquito bites, including the use of insect repellent and covering exposed skin outdoors. Meanwhile, Public Health Ontario is reporting an additional 54 cases of measles across the province. That means more than 2,300 cases have now been linked to the outbreak that started in October, sparked by an exposure in New Brunswick. Most of the new cases were reported in the Sudbury region and were resolved by the time they were investigated. Officials say while transmission may be slowing, continued vigilance is needed.
Justin Timberlake is sharing some personal health news. He says he was recently diagnosed with Lyme disease. The pop star broke the news in an Instagram post where he said living with the bacterial infection can be, quote, relentlessly debilitating both mentally and physically. The 44-year-old has been on a world tour since April of last year. He completed the last show Wednesday in Istanbul.
The Toronto International Film Festival has announced the first 4 honorees at this year's Tribute Awards. Soon after receiving a key to the city, Academy Award winner Guillermo del Toro will receive the TIFF Ebert Director Award, while fellow Oscar winner Jodie Foster will receive the TIFF Share Her Journey Groundbreaker Award. Both creators have film screening at TIFF this year, and they'll be honored alongside Japanese writer-director-producer Hikari and South Korean actor Lee Byung-hun. The awards are handed out September 7th. TIFF itself runs from the 4th to 14th.
Pop star Chappelle Roan is out with a new song that includes mention of a Canadian province.
I'm moving to Saskatchewan. It's just another day.
The song is called The Subway, and the video features New York City Transit. Roan first performed the single at a music festival a year ago. At the time, fans noticed the mention of Saskatchewan. According to the lyrics, that is where the singer joked she plans to move if she can't get over her ex.
Still to come, if you're looking to rent a car this summer, you might want to check the fine print. Details on why some drivers are getting denied. That's next.
Stock markets tumbled the last time U.S. President Donald Trump imposed wide-ranging global tariffs a few months ago, and the same thing appears to be happening today. The Dow, S&P 500, and NASDAQ all slumped in morning trading, while U.S. Treasury yields fell sharply. While higher tariffs are now in effect on Canadian goods, dozens of other countries got a reprieve until next week, but analysts say that injected a new dose of uncertainty into the markets. On this side of the border, the S&P TSX Composite is also down, although the Canadian dollar is up slightly. Another major factor weighing on U.S. markets today was a dismal jobs report. Officials say about 73,000 jobs were added last month. That is far lower than what economists had expected. What's more, the U.S. Labor Department drastically downgraded its previous figures on the numbers of jobs added in May and June. They dropped by a combined figure of 258,000, reinforcing worries about a weakening U.S. economy. Well, many people are still enjoying their summer vacations, and that could involve renting a car in Canada or another country.
But different rental companies have different rules about who they will rent, including how old you are. CTV's Pat Vaughan has this consumer alert.
My whole mission in this is just to let people know.
Carol Ann and John Jenisak of Oakville recently visited with family in British Columbia. Before they left, they made sure to book a rental car. But when they got to the rental counter in Victoria, they got a surprise.
When John handed her his driver's license, she said, "Oh dear, I'm sorry, but we can't rent to you because you're over 79. Which we had never heard of before.
Carol Ann was still 79 for another 3 months, so luckily she was able to rent the car as long as she did the driving, and John, who is 85, didn't get behind the wheel. The couple says the situation could have been worse.
If you had a trip arranged and you put deposits on hotels, that could be quite costly.
The Jenisaks rented a car with National Car Rental, whose parent company is Enterprise Mobility. A spokesperson told CTV News the National Car Rental branch in Victoria, BC, sets its own policies and procedures. Their age requirements for rental are outlined on their website under key facts and policies when you begin a reservation. Every rental company is different, and some don't have age restrictions, but some do. You could be denied a rental car if you're over 79 years of age, over 70 outside of Canada, if you're younger than 21 or 25 years old, if you have limited driving experience, have a bad credit rating, if you don't present a valid driver's license, or you don't have the proper form of payment. Most rental companies won't accept cash without a credit card on file. Last year, CTV News did a story with Brian Barnard of Etobicoke, who was denied a car rental because he wanted to pay with a prepaid credit card.
It was frustrating to go all the way there and then to be told that, you won't take my form of payment.
If you're planning to rent a car, you'll want to check the fine print to make sure your trip goes as planned. Pat Vaughan, CTV News.
Research is giving us new insight on women in aviation. A University of Waterloo study using technology to challenge gender biases, and it found female pilots perform better under pressure. CTV's Heather Sinnerin reports.
Preksha Shah is in her happy place.
For me personally, I'm a very adrenaline junkie, so I love flying, and it's also just really cool.
While this is a high-fidelity flight simulator, the aviation student has been in the cockpit of the real deal, too.
And the end goal, I definitely want to be like a commercial airline pilot.
Shah is one of 20 participants in a study at the University of Waterloo using the simulator.
We have data that challenges traditional assumptions in aviation these days, and that's kind of groundbreaking to be able to have this evidence to support the fact that, women belong in this industry.
For the study, participants with the same experience wore eye-tracking glasses and completed standard flight tasks, but with a twist. An unexpected total engine failure.
I was immediately able to be like, okay, we've had an engine failure and the runway's right there. Now I just need to land.
As calmly and as safely as possible.
And then maneuver the plane to said space where they could land the plane and let the air traffic controllers know that there was a mayday, there's an emergency on board.
The lead author of the study says women may be better at keeping control and making decisions in stressful flight scenarios.
Female participants were able to manage that much better in these high-stress scenarios versus those male pilots who ended up having a little bit more error with respect to, say, things like the airspeed they were trying to control while coming down from this engine failure and safely landing the plane.
Highlighting the importance of looking beyond surface level indicators when measuring pilot performance.
Only 6 to 7% of airline pilots are women. And that's a tremendous challenge when you think about there not being enough pilots in the system, and how do we attract and retain a workforce to support the future.
The team hopes their findings will help shape what the industry looks for pilots of the future. Heather Centerin, CTV News, Waterloo.
In sports, the Argos will go for a second straight win tonight on the road in a rematch against the Blue Bombers.
Arbuckle pumps and now looks to throw over the top. In the air on the money. DeMonte Coxey, touchdown Argos.
Toronto beat Winnipeg 31-17 at BMO Field last Saturday. The Argos are fourth in the East at 2-5, while the Bombers sit third in the West with a 3-3 record. Kickoff tonight is at 8:30 p.m. on TSN.
And the Blue Jays open a 3-game set against the Kansas City Royals at home tonight after the team made some moves on MLB trade deadline day. The Jays acquired starting pitcher Shane Bieber from the Cleveland Guardians in exchange for pitching prospect Cal Stephen. Bieber has a 1.59 ERA in 4 rehab starts as he works his way back from Tommy John surgery last April. Bieber won the American League Cy Young in 2020.
The last remaining Canadian at the women's draw at the National Bank Open is through to the tournament's next round. Toronto's Victoria Mboka defeated Czechia's Marie Buskova in 3 sets last night. She hit 5 aces in the match to put her total at the competition up to 32. Mboka will face top-seeded American Coco Gauff in the round of 16 tomorrow.
The head coach of the Toronto Scepters will lead Canada's women's Olympic team once again. Hockey Canada says Troy Ryan will lead the squad competing at next year's Winter Games in Italy. He's entering his 6th season as the head coach of the national women's team. Ryan captured gold at the 2022 Olympics in Beijing. He's also been at the helm of Toronto's PWHL team for the last 2 seasons and won Coach of the Year honors for the 2023-2024 campaign. We have more news after the break. Stay with us. Going back in time, audiences are taking a ride back to the future.
The musical version of the hit show pulled into the Ed Mirvish Theatre, and CTV's Andrea Case got behind the wheel of a very special vehicle.
Great Scott! Are you telling me you built a time machine out of a DeLorean?
The film Back to the Future debuted in 1985.
My dad showed me the movie when I was a kid. He was a huge fan.
I showed it to my children. I saw it in 1985 many times. Love the movie so much.
1955? 35 years later, the curtain first rose on the musical stage show in Manchester, England, before moving to Broadway.
I found out that someone was leaving the show, and so I called the director who I worked with before and was like, hey, I was wondering if I can get in.
Oh, do you like the Queen entrance?
Yes.
I've had many cars in my life. Long story, but this DeLorean is a one-of-a-kind. Only 6,681 of the luxury winged cars were ever sold. This is a replica, and even the actors admit the car is the star of the show. Lucas Hallower and David Josephsberg play Marty McFly and Doc Brown. Opening last week, the actors have settled into their run at the Ed Mirvish Theatre.
It's so nice to be here for 6 weeks and to be able to explore the city and see what Toronto's like, and so far it's been beautiful.
Still, if Hallower looks like Michael J. Fox, the actor who created the role, it's no coincidence. He says it's a dream role.
It's absolutely daunting at times because, you know, it is so iconic, but I am thrilled to be able to do it and hear people's reactions to it. It's nice to know that he's so beloved by so many people.
Make sure we're careful. Let me sneak by you.
Okay.
Watch now. Make sure he's okay there.
Yes.
Okay, and then we put it right in here. And then the car gets started when you start driving to...
Oh my gosh.
Oh no.
Life on the road can be difficult, moving from city to city, sometimes week after week. But this stint in Toronto comes with an additional benefit.
Things are great. You know, So in New York, when you work, you go to the show, and then you take the subway, and then you take care of the kids, and you take care of the dogs. And here you sort of just get to do self-care all day long if you want. You can go to the gym. You could do breath work, which I do all the time. You could meditate. And so I'm feeling good. I even taught breath work to the cast once.
Really?
Yeah, I'm going to keep
doing
doing
classes for us.
Yeah.
It's very nice, very kind of him.
We got to keep healthy. We got to keep our bodies, our brains, all of it.
This is wild. Back to the Future is on stage until August 31st. Andrea Case, CTV News.
Plutonium flux capacitor. I saw the movie back in the day, and I did see the musical, and it's fantastic. They captured it all, and the special effects were incredible as well.
Amazing.
So there you go.
I have nothing to add to flux capacitor.
You haven't seen it yet.
We'll have to check that one out. Let's take one more look at your weather. Overnight tonight, we're going to drop once again to a low of about 15 degrees, which may seem a little cool for this time of year. We've got clear skies, though. We're just on the cool side of seasonal. And then tomorrow, at a glance, a little bit warmer than today. It's going to feel more like 31 again, but what a great looking long weekend forecast. Get outside, enjoy, make the most of it. We know that summer is short. Here's your 7-day forecast, looking pretty consistent through the middle to end of next week. Nathan and Natalie.
Looking forward to it, and that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us here at CTV News, thank you for watching. I'm Natalie Johnson.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great afternoon.